We give thanks for this opportunity to be blessed and be blessed in spirit. We give thanks for the feelings of connection, peace, and warmth that fill our hearts and minds right now. We give thanks for the privilege praying for others in our community and around the globe. And we affirm that always and always divine love and divine order is everywhere present. At Unity Spiritual Center, your prayer is our prayer too. Amen.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day in the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. For the colors of the rainbow, pretty in the sky, and also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying that I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Thank you, Michael and Ron. I don't know about you, but that song always brings warmth to me. So it's me. I am talking about sustainability today and lessons from nature. All the photos you see today are from a trip that I took with my family in July of last summer. And all the things that I'm talking about today stem from actually walking through the Olympic National Park, which is where this is. And so I would highly encourage you, if you haven't before, please make a trip up there one day. And it is pretty astounding. And if you have been there before, you'll know what I'm talking about. So for me, I was reflecting upon it. I didn't take my first hike until I was about 24, which was just, it didn't make sense. I'm like, how could it take that long? But it was a nice hike. It was from Dipsea down to Stinson Beach. And I didn't realize, oh my goodness, what's in the trees takes a whole lot of not just taking it in, but if you're on a hiking trail, you have to keep alert all the time. You got to look for footing, and at the same time, know to go slow enough to enjoy what you're being enveloped with. So that was the first experience I had. And then I was thinking, wait a second, I also grew up in a neighborhood in San Francisco called Midtown Terrace, also known as Twin Peaks. And I think it's one of the only places in San Francisco where you are surrounded, you live within a eucalyptus forest, and the trees are at least 150 feet tall. And what I didn't realize is every day I would wake up and go home to a forest. There's an area not far away called Forest Hills, but this, where I grew up, is pretty amazing. So I thought, oh, maybe that's why I never realized home was actually a forest. So talking about being at the first day of the Olympic National Park, we were really excited. We got there, and there was one park ranger, which I thought, perfect. He's right there just as we need him. And he looked like he had been there for ages. And it turns out he was a volunteer. He's actually he's a fourth grade teacher for 28 years and comes on the summers to volunteer to be a park ranger. And because of budget cuts all over the place, there were only 2 park rangers in that area of the national park. That national park, you can fit the state of Rhode Island into that park and then some. And so that equals 1,400 square miles, 922,000 acres, which is actually it's hard to wrap your head around that's a forest up there in mountains. So it is a temperate rainforest, which is one of the few, if not the largest in North America. There's only 7 in the entire world, some in New Zealand. There's some in New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Korea, and Norway. There's some of them. And so what is a temperate rainforest? You must be able to collect over 100 inches of rain a year. Then you qualify to be called a temperate rainforest. You need 2 major things. You need to be near an ocean and on the mountains or you have to be part of the mountains. With those 2 things together, that creates rain. It creates snow, if you can get high enough. When you come further down, it creates fog, which we know everything about here, and mist. And with that combination, and sunshine, which is very important, these massive trees, which, you see redwoods, and I can never understand how it's possible because we're not able to do it by looking up from the ground, that trees can grow hundreds of feet, right? 300 feet, and it just goes higher and higher, and you just have to trust that it's true, and somehow someone could measure it. But what I think we all feel, if you sit and think about when was the first time you walked through a forest, and if it wasn't a forest, it could just be your local park, Golden Gate Park. But when you go into the forest, there's something that overtakes you. It's almost like it commands reverence that you never knew you might have had to give to the world. I was thinking about it. If you look at the architecture of cathedrals, it is, I think, what inspired people to create inside what you somehow can feel outside. So I looked, it's a sanctuary. A sanctuary is a sacred place. This room itself is called a sanctuary. So when you see what's out there, you feel like you are amongst these stoic giants. At first it's like, how do they survive? You don't feed them food, nobody comes and gives them fertilizer, and it's through all those things. The redwoods and all those other tall trees, they wait for the morning fog, the mist, it drips down the leaves, down to the ground, and then the phylum bring the nutrients down into the roots. The xylem sends the water that came down from dripping down, up, back up to the top. So it's this amazing cycle. So it looks really quiet. The main thing you hear are birds. If you listen hard enough, little, bugs. We saw a lot of bugs and wildlife and deer. But actually it started in 1997, an ecologist named Suzanne Simard. She thought, well, there's something that it can't just be what we see above. And what she studied revealed that there is connection for miles, acres of the trees that we see. And it's called, what connects it? It's a root system called mycorrhizal networks. Mycorrhizal stands for, it is the word fungus root. And they set out little mycelium. So like above, you see these, we see all these little mushrooms. What's below, they're sending out these tiny little tendrils that connect all these trees together. And they talk to each other. They create this connection where they send out nutrients. And what she also discovered is if you look for the biggest trees, there's a couple here and there. That one she called a hub. It's called also lovingly a mother tree. And that is the ones that are spread out, that when they sense that there is a new seedling, when they sense that there is other trees in danger, it starts to send out extra nutrients. They prefer their own species first and foremost, but even other species of trees, if they start sending out these signals, other chemical signals, then that mother tree will give their nutrients, start giving it that way. So let me look at some of these pictures I have. I don't know if you can see it from here, but on the right side, there's a little tree coming out of a fern. On the left is just a nice quiet moment there amongst the trees. All right, and on the left is part of what makes it a temperate rainforest. You have these towering trees, and below is just a huge forest of, ferns. And ferns, I think, are amazingly beautiful. So you're getting this whole, it's like you can't see the top, but you can sure see what's down at the bottom. And what's down there, the pine needles fall, that creates mulch and protection for animals. It refeeds what's below, and then it's this whole cycle. And we have the great joy and gift to be able to actually go to tons of national parks, or again, just your local Golden Gate Park or something similar, to be able to be a part of all of this. On the right there, this is on big screen, it's a little bit harder to see. On the right there is a fallen tree, and that's referred to as a nurse tree. So we've got a mother and a nurse. And what happens, it supports these little seedlings. So it was amazing that half the time you're looking up. And then when you continue on your walk, you get really close, and there's these tiny, tiny little trees that one day will become giants. So what this reminds me of, there is also, sometimes you see two trees that look like their branches are growing together, or they're coming together from the bottom, but especially the ones that are next to each other, and all of a sudden there's these two branches. Like, how did that happen? They look like they're from two totally different trunks. And so I found out that is called inosculation, otherwise known as the marriage tree. Osculum is the Latin word for kiss. And how it works is there can be two trees as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. They kind of hit elbows, and then with however evolution and wind and everything works, they start to move closer together, and then they end up like rubbing elbows, and they're like, oh, ouch. And it causes a scar, it creates sap. And what happens is they slowly, over I don't know how many thousands of years, they grow together, and then they start sharing each other's nutrients, and they don't even have to be related. They don't even have to be the same species. And so yeah, it's just, so next time you go in the forest, look for those trees, and that's pretty amazing to know they've got a whole communication system. So what does this tell us? There is humanity. There's humanity in nature. By looking at humanity, we try to figure out, in these trees, what does that remind in ourselves? So I'm going to show you three stories of humanity. And this humanity, unfortunately, has to manifest itself through major stressors. So my hope is that we can bring this into our daily life, not wait for the biggest stress to bring it out in us. So on the global level, on the personal level, and in our local level. So we all know that, I think we're in year 3. It's supposed to be tapering off, but we are in this unprecedented time. What pulls us together is what happened 3 years ago, almost exactly 3 years ago, with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and we're still We're still getting through that and evolving. I don't think there's ever a new normal. It's an evolution. So what we find is we are truly interconnected. All of a sudden, we have these people called essential. You know, why would it take that long for us to figure out who's essential? Whether they liked it or not, they were essential. They were the ones who had to show up to risk their lives, their health, to help one another, which is, you know, who knew that you could do that? I work at UCSF. I work with the researchers and faculty and care workers, doctors, and nurses. And for the first time ever, I'm a librarian. What's amazing is that is unbelievable. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Elsevier, they're one of the giants of publication. They allowed scientists, or not scientists, everyone, all universities to be able to get free access to their journals. And they're huge titles. And this was to be able to speed up collaboration. Like usually it's like, I'm not gonna show you my cards until, you know, I feel like I have the right hand to deal. But this was the first time that scientists were on a race to save all of us. And they were sharing. It's like, here, I know something, you know something, let's do something with that. And then what I saw at UCSF is we have PhD students. They're there to learn their research, to apply it. They have mentors. They had to pause all of that for about a year. And so these PhD students are sitting there saying, oh, we can't go in, we need to do something, and they can't just sit there because that's pretty frustrating. So what they were able to do is they changed those labs into places where they were testing assays, the different things that now we are using to be able to screen for COVID. And what we figured out for sure is something that used to be called Zoom. It was a product, so you could say, I'm going to use Zoom to contact you. We say Zoom means to go really fast, and now Zoom is a new verb. I'm gonna Zoom you, right? For better or worse, we all know how to Zoom. And thank you for Zoom that we can actually be virtual as well with our people out there. But, oh, and then our family, we watched it's an excellent theater. It's a New York City production theater called the Theater of War. And they have an excellent website that posts their performances. But what they do is they have local New York theater actors as well as very famous actors. So the one that we sat through, they have discussions afterwards. It's a 45-minute experience. Was Bill Murray. And it was so cool because this is the early days of the pandemic, so nobody knew that you had a background that you could use to kind of cover whatever's in your background. So when he wasn't reading his roles, we could see he opened his kitchen door and he went into his kitchen. He was checking his phone. He was getting a glass of water. So, you know, Zoom brought us into his house. So, so that was pretty fun. I didn't expect that. But with the term what's called social distancing, I wish there was some other way that we could have called that, because the social is so important to us. And we didn't realize that until we were told you can't be next to each other. You know, 6 feet, that's too close. So I think what we learn is when we are set apart, all of a sudden we realize how much we need each other. Young people who were at home alone, they started Zoom dance parties, that sounds fun. I never joined one, but it sounds awesome. And then we saw, you know, people who couldn't be near their loved ones, go to your nursing home, and you want to see your relative, your grandfather, your mother, and they would go to the outside part of the window, and that had to be the closest connection. If you couldn't get that close, the health workers would quite often use FaceTime or Zoom to let patients see their families. So those are new things that we learned to do. But for sure what we learned is this pandemic's made social connection so vital to us. So on a personal level, where I found humanity, which was amazing in just 12 hours, is when I was about, well, I can't tell you how old I am. When I was in my final year of college, I spent the whole afternoon with my dad in San Diego, packing this van that we rented to be, perfectly okay. We're going to put everything in this space to be able to fit it all. And then we headed on the road from San Diego, UCSD, up to San Francisco, right in the middle at about 10:30, 11 at night. My dad, excuse me, my dad and I were in mid-conversation, and all of a sudden there was this boom that just catapulted us. But before we knew what was happening, all I knew is that I could hear and feel when we looked at what happened afterwards, is my dad had overcorrected. We were in the slow lane, probably going about 65, 70, and he had overcorrected. So on my side first, our van started turning, and it turned 3 times. And I don't know how long it took, probably just a couple seconds. But I don't picture this very much. I went to the junkyard later, the next day, to take pictures of the car. And so my dad, he had a head injury. And so I looked at the picture. Every time the car turned, I was the one that got less impact. He got the bigger impact because the heaviness kept bringing down his side of the roof. So when I looked at the picture, my side of the roof made a perfect tent over my head, so I didn't get hit. His, if you can imagine it, his side of the roof came down to probably below where the back of where your seat headrest is. So when the whole thing stopped, we landed, thankfully, on our tires. And I looked, and I couldn't figure out, well, where's he? Where am I? And I looked, and he was in my lap and totally out. And then I looked forward, and I couldn't figure out our orientation, and we were now perpendicular to the road. And then all of the glass was nowhere. The entire front window was gone. And the first thing I thought is, well, what hit us? Who hit us? And where is that person? I couldn't see a car behind us or in front of us. And then it hit me, oh my God, this is not good. And I was thinking, okay, I can either freak out or I can try to focus. And so I had to focus. That was what worked. And immediately, I think within less than a minute, it was just all the blur, but I do remember, we had someone who stopped, said, are the keys, is the engine off? I thought, oh my God, that's really important, so I turned it off. And then somewhere else, someone came and said that, here, let me look at how your dad is. And so it was a nurse. It was a nurse that just got off of her night shift and was going home. And then this other person came up, and I don't know if there were cell phones back then. Anyway, she came over and said, is there someone? There must have been, yes. We called 911. Is there someone you would like us to call? So I gave her my family's number. And then, so that person was there. They left. And then, incredibly, there was this huge bus, a travel bus. And it was actually a bus full of Oregon teenagers who were on their senior trip coming back from Disneyland, going back up home. And I guess this one kid did it. They stopped the bus, and he came down it. It turns out he's a volunteer EMT. And he said, how can I help? And this one kid that came off the bus, they stopped the entire bus for him. And so he came, he provided whatever he could. And this mysterious person who I didn't even see their face, they came up and said, I have an extra oxygen tank in my car with a mask. Do you need that? I'm like, I don't know where you come from. Yes, we need that. And so it ended up the EMT kid, he put on the mask on my dad. My dad started waking up. I'm like, just look at the lights. Don't fall asleep. And so what else happened? Then we had, let's see, that was that part. We had all these people who came. So there's the oxygen guy. And then the person took off. Well, I don't know who you are, but thank you. In this time, the fire engines arrived. They spent 20 minutes using the jaws of life to try to get my dad out of that side. I realized I could kick my door open and start looking for what do I do now. So in that time, they sent a helicopter, a meta helicopter, and by that time, then I wasn't so stressed. I thought, okay, someone is here to help. I can now not just think about this whole craziness. So the thing I knew is I had to find my identification, his identification. There was a backpack. I'm like, that's it, let's take that. And everything I had nicely packed, my dad and I packed, was strewn all over the freeway. Then the helicopter people, they said, we will take him to, where was it, Fresno, I think, was the nearest trauma center. And then my dad worked for the police department, so he had a star indicating that he did, that he always wears with him. So when they cut open his shirt, they said, first they said, we'll take him, you wait for an ambulance. I'm like, I can't wait for any ambulance. I don't want to be separated from him. And they said, you know what? We will let you go. Just don't touch anything. We'll let you go with us. And it was because he had the badge. They're like, we want to help work with each other. So it's like in the movies, I don't know how many people get a chance, but it was nighttime. So when the helicopter picked itself up, and it swung around, you see the lights just go across, like these huge lights go across where we were lifting from, which was our car. And that's where I truly saw, oh my God, everything I packed is out there, and who cares? I mean, we spent so much time, it's like papers and everything was out there. And I thought, okay, this truly shows that stuff is not as important as we all think our things may be at times. So where did the humanity continue? It was, well, first of all, I looked at my hands when I got to the hospital. I couldn't tell, is the blood on my hands mine or my dad's? So I didn't wash my hands in case it was his. So as I was signing in, I was getting all the stuff you have to do with who you are and your insurance. The woman there, she said, I'm going to get out of work in a few hours, or not that long, in about an hour. And she saw that I had blood on my clothes. So she said, my daughter looks like she's about the same size as you. When I go home, I'll get her some of her clothes and bring them to you to change. I thought, oh my God. So there, that was probably about from 11 at night to about 6 in the morning. There was this chain of events that just have no explanation. But it was so fortunate because my dad got another 27 years of life, and he passed away almost 2 years ago. Okay, I don't tell that story very often, but it's so powerful. And then, how about us in our community, whether you're new today or we've been here for years? How do we all, what keeps us networked? I don't want to say we're under any stress, but I know all places of worship, and I think we're a very special place because we're so multicultural, so open, multi-everything. And how can we take that? How do we make that sustainable? Let me see. All right, so here, this I think is incredible. I mean, I think many of you have seen this on your walks. Is you can see there's a family of trees. I don't think they started as a family, and then it's eroded enough that you see how intricate their root system is right in that little space. So I think nature teaches us about what I call life, looking, initiating, following up, and encouraging. So how does that affect us? We don't have to wait till big things happen. We can look, whether you're in part of this community, which preferably in this community, but wherever you live, whoever you are, whenever you are, is look for opportunities. They're always there. You can open the door for someone, smile at someone, talk to someone. Next time you see someone who's homeless, if you get a chance, it's okay. You can stop. And they're, they, they have lots of stories. There's wonderful stories that people can share with each other. Sometimes just saying hi, I know that makes someone's day, whoever you are. And initiate, always take the first step. The first step is always yours, always ours. So if you see it, you can feel it. You feel so called to do so. And following through, as soon as you pick up something, say you want to do it, we just make sure progress is made. All the people that helped us that night, they didn't have to stick around more than about 10 minutes. But they left when they felt it was safe enough to leave. And encourage others to join you. That's the way we do it, right? We know we can't be alone, and love comes from proximity and from the heart and where we can send it out to in the universe. And thank you for everyone on Zoom. You are our virtual network. So we love you. Those of you who have come in the past and are able to come back, please do. This sanctuary is so welcoming, and I know this sanctuary is what made us fall in love with this place. And so we're always here, and we always pray for you to come back and be a part of our family. And for those of you, all of us, let friends know that we are here. People want something. If they're not told where it is, this is the place to start looking forward and feeling it. All right, let me see. Okay, so what nature also teaches us is you can leave, there can be wars, foes become allies, allies become foes, and then suddenly wars for a while are over. Civilization with people, humans, has ceased. And then if you look and give enough time, these amazing tree roots just take over. And nature can't help itself. It will pop up between cracks in the concrete. And it defies everything and should teach us that we have that in us. We have that life force. So nature is our teacher, our spiritual mentor. If you feel like, wait a second, this whole thing, I wake up, but now I have to go back to work in person. That's okay, because I like people, but it's also comfortable to be at home in your pajamas. So if you're lucky, you can maybe do hybrid. And if you're back in person, it's amazing. The smallest things. I started to miss, the person you can just smile at every morning. That you don't even know them, but someone that you walk past every day. You're like, I miss that. So when we feel we need something, there's no person next to us, that's all right. Go out into some place where there's greenery, or go out to the ocean, wherever there's water, a lake, feel things, smell things. You don't have to try, they're there. And invite yourself, be a kid again. Go touch some dirt. My kids are always, no matter how old they'll be, they're always digging in dirt, and with whatever I feel is like, that's okay, I can wash out the stains. And finally, what I finally did is, after thinking all this stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm going to actually look up what the word sustain means. Where did it come from? So sustain is derived from the Latin word sustineo. And then if you break that down, sus means from below, and teneo is to hold up. So without realizing it, I have this whole lesson about roots, and that's what's below us to sustain what's between, and we are the ones above the earth. So my final thing to you is just remember to look, initiate, follow through, and encourage. Thank you for your time. Oh, still me. All right. This is a time for our meditation. Feel free to relax. Put yourself comfortably at the back of your seat or wherever you may be relaxing. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes or relax your gaze. I'll walk you through something that I think would be very nice to start your week on. Take a moment to appreciate this moment. this time to explore your emotions, your feelings, your inner voice. Let's take three deep breaths, whatever pace you like. Really bring us into the moment of being centered. Imagine you're out for a long walk into nature. You were walking and walking, and you can feel nature all around you. Visualize a green meadow of the greenest color that you like the most. Visualize an extension of green grass that extends to a nearby forest. You see the green grass, the green reflections of the sun on the meadow. You extend the look towards the forest, and you see leaves of all the possible green tones. It's relaxing, very relaxing. The sun is reflecting in the green leaves of the trees, and a myriad of delicate shades of green are formed before your eyes, echoing each other, creating a green three-dimensional space. It is beautiful, and you enjoy it. You breathe calmly. Another deep breath. Pure air, full of the oxygen produced by the trees of the forest. You find yourself breathing in a green, relaxing air. With each breath, you relax more and more. You listen to the sounds of nature, birds. A sound passing between the leaves of the trees is relaxing, very relaxing. You hear the sound of the wind in the leaves and relax more and more. You see a log bench that was carved to provide a chair back. It is smooth and inviting, and you seat yourself down. You gently bring your attention to a person or some situation that is causing you a sense of discomfort. Shift this energy and create a loving kindness meditation practice to get in tune with the world and with yourself in a mindful, gentle, caring way. Think about a person or another living thing, being, that makes you smile naturally. It can be a child, a grandma, a pet, a creature or person that brings happiness naturally into your heart. Visualize just as this person or thing as if they were in front of you now. Acknowledge how vulnerable this creature can be, just like you, subject to sickness, aging, and death. This creature wants to be happy and free from suffering, just like all other living beings. You repeat to yourself in a relaxed way, may you be safe, calm, healthy, peaceful. If you are doing this on your own, at not this time, if your mind wanders away, remember those words. Now visualize yourself, your whole body in the mind's eye, and offer the same message to yourself, knowing that you too can be vulnerable under certain circumstances. May you be safe, calm, healthy, peaceful. Now choose a neutral person, a person who does not give you any particular emotion, neither positive nor negative. Even this person can be vulnerable. Visualize this in front of you as you are talking to them and repeat the message. May you be safe, calm, healthy, peaceful. Return each time to this image and the words in your mind. If they wander, remember those words. Excuse me. Now a more difficult part comes into play. Choose a person who has caused you pain in the past or still creates negative emotions. Allow them to sit in front of you. Even this person can be vulnerable under circumstances. You repeat, may you be safe, calm, healthy, peaceful. Return to this image and remember those words. Allow your unconscious mind to extend the message to all human beings, to people near home, in the workplace, in the city, and beyond, experiencing a sense of belonging to the world. And when you're ready and you think you've extended this message to everyone, feel the loving kindness taking over, spreading to everything and everybody in your life, to people and things that are already there and people that are going to be there one day. Spread it to the universe, to the world in the sense of unity and deep caring, connection with positivity and love. We close with one last deep breath in and healing long breath out. And when you feel ready, wiggle your toes, your fingers, and slowly open your eyes. Return to the sanctuary and feel the love.
Wow, thank you, Joe, for that amazing, the story that you shared, incredible. And I think that you're not the only one in this room. We get to a certain point and we look back and we're like, oh my God, I'm still here. How did that happen? And, you know, it's a mystery and it's part of God's plan, in my humble opinion. I also loved your story about the rainforest. And some of you know that I spent about a third of my time in Joshua Tree in the desert. And we have trees there that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, called creosotes. They too have a mother tree and surrounded by the babies. We also have Joshua trees, and where I live, I'm too low. I'm not the sweet spot. I have a few Joshua trees around my house, but because of the drought, they're dying. And last summer, I walked out, and I irrigate some. I've got some rock gardens that are irrigated, and I looked, and a baby Joshua tree had volunteered and was growing in my rock garden, and I am guarding that sucker with my life. So thanks again for your beautiful story. So here at Unity Spiritual Center, we are an ocean of love. At Unity Spiritual Center, we have an inspiring vision, an exciting mission, and compelling values by which we strive to live. Please join me saying them aloud. Our vision is centered in God. We co-create a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. Our mission is we are a creative, joy-filled spiritual community dedicated to healing, inspiring, and transforming the lives of all people through prayer, education, and love. And our values are, We are spirit-led, generous with resources, inclusive, joyously creative, and guided by integrity. And in this space, feeling so inspired by our vision, mission, and values, and feeling so enriched by what we've experienced here today, let us take time now to be a channel for enrichment through our generous tithes and love offerings. And as Michael shares the next beautiful song, please take the time to write out a check to USC, or if you're on Zoom, to make a donation online. If you are here in the sanctuary, the ushers will come forward to take your offering. And practicing the principle of tithing ourselves, as a spiritual community, we are pleased to tithe 10% of the offering collected every Sunday to various unity organizations and local nonprofits serving our city. So let us now take a moment to bless our tithes and love offerings as we cup them in our hands or next to our hearts. Let's say our offering blessing, which is on your screen. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
I'll be loving you always with a love that's true. Always when the things you plan need a helping hand, I will understand, darling, always, always. Days may not be fair, always. That's when I'll be there, always. And it's not just for an hour, not just for a day, not just for a year, but always. Well, days may not be fair, always. That's when I'll be there, and always. Not just for an hour, not just for a day, not just for a year, but always.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ron, my very spirited husband, Ruben. Thank you all for always being who you are. And let us have the blessing of the offerings.
It takes about 2 seconds for it to go. You'll see it will light up on in the
Here we go. All right, thank you. Spirit of the living God, bless the acts of our hands, our minds, our hearts. May everything offered here at Unity Spiritual Center be a reflection that is all that is good within us. Grant us the courage to patiently listen for the stirring of your presence. Enliven our spirits with humor. Fill us with reverence for one another and gratitude for our diversity. May unity, beauty, and truth be the fruit of all we do. And so it is. Amen.